Hi.
Hello, Manchester. How are you?
I'm good, and you? How are you, Sunny?
Absolutely great. You look fantastic.
Oh, thank you, darling. Thank you,
You
darling.
look absolutely fantastic. Just waiting for
Thank
everyone
you.
to join as everyone
Cool.
comes on. Hello,
All right.
everyone. It's 6 p.m. on a Wednesday. That means we go live on @SA Creatives with me, Sunni Faba. And our guest today is the absolute trailblazer and amazing female creative, Manchester Mahapa. Let me tell you a little bit about Manchester. She's a production manager. She serves as a production manager, as a writer on short form, on long form, scripted, non-scripted, live shows, pre-recorded shows, dramas, creative directed The Safters, worked on shows like Ashes to Ashes, Broken Vows, Grassroots. So basically just like a badass creative. Is that a fair title to give you?
I won't fight you. I won't fight you.
Okay, so you'll take it.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Awesome.
Okay,
I'm
good.
so glad you're joining us tonight. Thank you so much. I really want to get inside your brain and kind of pick your brain about a bunch of topics today. But the first question that I ask all my guests is, what is it about a story?
What is it about a story? I think it's emotions, an emotional roller coaster, it captivating you, it moving you. Like, I think that stories capture emotions and they move you and they leave you with characters that feel like home. So I think a story for me, and what it is about a story, is that feeling of being at home with a suspended disbelief, and being lost in make believe, really.
Did you spend a lot of your time growing up getting lost in make believe that kind of fed this need and this burning desire inside you to tell stories?
Definitely. I mean, I was a last born child. My brother's like 9 years older than me, so I was kind of like a loner at home. So reading and watching films and watching television it might be a hobby for other people, but it was really how I got by. You know, I used to imagine myself recreating these shows. I, was captivated by how they were written. So stories always moved me, and I myself became like a young storyteller at home. Like, if everybody's at home, they're like, okay, tell us a story, tell us a story. Like, that was my thing, to entertain a family at home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's interesting. Your journey is a little bit interesting, and I want to share it with people so that they have a sort of context and a frame of reference. Is that you actually have a BCom degree, and then you have a film honors degree, and then you took it a step further just to stunt on us by going to study in Czech Republic to kind of get that. So what is it about what you learned overseas and all of the different places that you've learned and kind of amalgamating academia into what you do now?
So I think for me, the choice to go to Czech Republic was very interesting. At the time, I just finished my undergrad at WITS. It was a BCom in insurance and risk management and marketing. And I've always wanted to tell stories, but obviously, this where we come from, there aren't people, certainly in my family, there's nobody in the arts. So my parents always wanted me to study something that, to fall back on. So then when I had finished with the thing to fall back on, I was like, I really, I've waited all my life to do this thing, and I don't have 4 years to go through after. Like, what can I do, that will bring me closer to my dream? So I was just kind of like on the internet, and I found the school in Czech Republic, and they're like, you're gonna make 12 films in a year. And I was like, 12 films in a year? That sounds like a project as studying gone fast. Let me apply. And and I got in. So literally they throw you into the deep end. The second week of school, you're making your first film. I'd never picked up a camera in my life. I'd never written on a scripting format in my life. My peers had been shooting things on Super 8 cameras, things that I heard about for the first time when I got there. So the difference, I'd say, for me is when you're studying like 4 years at Wits, is a lot of theory, of course, which is very, very important, which is why I went back to study that. But you don't get to shoot as much. But in that kind of school that I was in, from day one, you are shooting. So you're practicing your craft while you're learning it. So there is no test or exam. You're making films. That's all you do. And then you sit with your lecturers and they critique it. So it's not about just studying and then making this thing only at the end for people to be like, oh my gosh, you missed everything, that you should have learned in the last 6 months. If your sound is messed up on the first film, you already know. If framing.
So would you call it like a baptism of fire? Like you had to kind of know, you had to kind of learn as you go and kind of jump in and do it.
Definitely baptism by fire. I was very, very nervous. I mean, there were only 3 of us from Africa. 2 guys were from Saudi Arabia. I was the only one from kind of like in South Africa. And everyone else had been from Europe and Asia and America. They knew so much more about films and filmmaking and the art of filmmaking, than I could have ever imagined in my life. I mean, like there was this funny story. In our first lecture, they go around asking everyone, what's your favorite film? And everybody's mentioning these directors I've never heard of in my life. And I'm like, my favorite film is Forrest Gump. And the whole class starts laughing. And I'm just like,
in all fairness, Forrest Gump is a brilliant film. It is a brilliant film, but it doesn't get you chops in a filmmaker's class. Understandable. Okay.
No.
So I want to talk about a quote that you have, and I don't want to misquote you. Is that you say, "I want to prioritize Black narratives and lived experience. I want to tell stories that portray multidimensional female and queer characters." This is such an interesting way to look at storytelling for me, and it's such a deliberate way. So can you tell us why prioritizing these type of narratives is kind of your agenda?
You have to be intentional about everything, whether it is storytelling, whether it's rewriting history, whether it's even our own identities. We come from a history that feels like it's very ahistorical when it comes to Black life. It's like we don't hear. It's like there's slavery and there's apartheid and there's everything that happened historically, but it's like we never experienced life and our hurt was never portrayed. So I think, the one thing that in every project that I go into is making sure that the stories I tell reflect the society around me. So I need to see people that I can see in everyday life. And I want them, when they experience any project that I work on, to be like, oh my gosh, I know that person, I know that character, I'm that character. Because that's what stories, you're supposed to resonate with stories.
So which work that has come out in the recent past? Sorry,
I don't know what happened. Yeah.
I'm saying, which work in the recent past then would you feel like references that, and the kind of work that you would reference that you would want to be making, that would kind of push that agenda and that deliberateness?
There's a great deal of filmmakers and storytellers right now that are doing an incredible job. I would say, Ava DuVernay, Issa Rae, Michaela Cole. If I think of my, South African counterparts, I would say yourself as well, Lwazi Mbuzi. I'd say even like happiness is a 4-letter word, that it felt like Sex and the City, but you were in Johannesburg, and you could not put these characters anywhere else in the world but in Johannesburg. So I think that's when you get to see stories that reflect the places that we experience, and that's very important.
So I want to tell everyone that's joined the live is that if you want to send questions, we're going to be taking questions that I'll be recording and asking Manchester throughout this conversation. So please feel free to send them down there. But Manchester, what I want to say is that you have a vast bag of skills. If one looks at your career, you've done very many different things. And I feel like there's a new wave of creators who are doing this in a way that hasn't necessarily been done before. That, you know what, you want to write. You want to creative produce. You want to direct. You want to act, do it. So I would call you, I don't know if you would call yourself that, a multidisciplinary artist. Is that you're not daunted by whatever the creative path is?
Yes, definitely. I think I also call myself a multidisciplinary. I think creative and producer, because I've worked in both live shows, um, you know, line produced theater awards or big awards, as well, creative directed, big awards as well. So I think if you are somebody who is in love with this craft of entertainment and television and storytelling, you have to be dynamic,
Yes.
because the times are always changing. Now people are creating online, and so you can't just be like a, master of one thing. You kind of have to be like a jack of all trades. And we also don't have the kind of industry, kind of remuneration and opportunity wise, that can sustain you by doing just one thing. You have to be able to collaborate with many people who have different skills from yourself, which means you have to apply yourself in different ways at the same time.
Okay. So what are the advantages of being so well versed in these many different disciplines? How does it help your work?
People definitely can't get things past you. I've edited before. I know what a bad cut looks like. I'm just like, you weren't trying here. I think the only thing I probably really suck at is like editing sound, but I know when there's like a muffle on sound, so I know sound. When it comes to like a call sheet, if someone says no, this is going to be too hard to schedule, I'm like, I've definitely done many call sheets. Let's sit together. What's the problem? And I think even creative producing, so being able to, so it's one thing to start to write a story and tell a story, but it's another thing to tell a story with moving graphics, like in creative directing a live show, for example. So you need to know screen dimensions, and you need to understand when you're sitting with somebody who's purely technical, telling you about why the graphic image you've been working on for 2 weeks can't work on that particular screen because of the dimensions or what it means to the sound inside an amphitheater. So you have to understand all of these things to be able to execute whatever project you have, so whether it's rehearsal, choreography, framing, if I come up with a creative direction for an artist for like their performance on stage, at the same time, I have to sit with, okay, what is the director seeing on 11 different cameras at each point in time? What choreography, what are the places where, they can create magic? At the same time, you have to sit with the guys that are like cueing, what do they call it again? I've just forgot I've forgotten the word now. Like the flames and whatever, pyrotechnics.
Yes, like the sound thing. So
exactly.
I just, to answer some of the questions, is that when we say multidisciplinary, it's that like whether it's a music piece, whether it's an installation, whether it's a scripted piece of content, whether it's live show, whether it's, is that all of these disciplines come together to make the final product.
Definitely,
and I think that your role as creative producer then is so important, because what you're saying is that you have a lived understanding of all of these different things.
Yeah, definitely. I think if I could relate in like a story to kind of like make sense, I remember a couple of years ago, starting out, I was a production coordinator on a live show, and I'm sitting in a room with, 10, I think there was like 10 different men, and they're all technical, and like they're measuring like the stage, and they're talking about the size of like football fields and like basketball fields. And you're just like sitting there like, what do they mean? They're using technical terms, FOH, front of house.
Because of the references.
Because of the references. So it forced me to learn to adapt and to read and so that I can sit in that meeting as a production coordinator, taking notes and being able to execute them, knowing what they mean.
So do you find that then the technical aspects of being creative are quite male dominated?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that. Yeah.
And so what has been a challenge then for you as coming in, because you have the whole creative vision in your head and you know what you want, and you basically have to now make everyone do your dance. So how do you handle that? What's the culture you like to cultivate?
So I've also been kind of fortunate that I've worked with the same kind of people. So they've seen me kind of grow from project to project. So even when they saw me in a role where they'd never seen me before, they knew that I was the kind of person who, invests and learns and researches and is not afraid to ask questions. So when it was my time to be in the hot seat and for me to work with them, I had to bring them into my confidence and be like, this is my dream. This is what I want to execute. These are the gaps that I'm still trying to figure out. So you make it more of a collaborative piece, because you also don't want to sit back and look like you don't know anything. You might not know, like some things are new technology. You yourself are, you don't know, like lighting. Like I'm not really good at lighting, but I know what would look good on stage. So I would sit with, someone who's like really, really technical, for example, like a Robert Krobler, and be like, okay, this is what I want to do. And then I'm gonna send him references. I'm like, so how can we do this to get that? So I think you have to gain the confidence of the people that you work with, but you have to bring them in and collaborate with them. And that's very important. So they feel that, it's not talking to them and I'm not coming here high and mighty, this is how I want everything to be done, but it's like, team, let's huddle together and let's get this thing done the right way, and let's all bring our individual skills. And my thing is always, let's be solution based. Like, the problems are going to be many in a live show. The problems are a lot, many. Like, even when it's time to go, like it's 8 p.m, I am sweating bullets, and I always think of anything that can go wrong, but I know that I'm always surrounded by a team of problem solvers, so that also puts me at ease.
So what then, if you speak about trying to earn that respect, if someone is coming into this industry and looks up to what the kind of work that you do, what would be your key advice point for them then?
I think my thing is always do everything. You can never stop learning. Find people that you respect, ask questions, get yourself near them, just watch what they're doing, and, also learn your craft. I think that's the most important thing.
Learn your craft.
Learn your craft. Learn your craft, but also don't be afraid to take opportunities that feel like you aren't ready for them. Like those have happened for me, where I think a great example was like creative directing the SAFTAs. I'd never creative directed a live show on stage to South Africans before, let alone the SAFTAs that, like everybody's watching. So the thing for me was to kind of like sit back and not have the imposter syndrome. I was like, I wrote the pitch that got us the thing. So clearly, step one, something is right.
There's something there. Yes.
There's something there. So then bringing everything together was being surrounded by an incredibly supportive, team. Everybody, like when I looked left and I looked right, there were allies, there were people, there were heroes, there were people carrying me, because they believed in me. So in opportunities like that, you always have to grab them and know that, people can see the hard work that you put in, and everything. The village will be there for you. So I think if I would say any advice to anyone who's starting out, I'd say jump in, learn everything. And when you do get that big break or that big opportunity, don't step back. It's scary as hell. You're going to cry. You're going to feel like you're not ready, but trust
but you're gonna get through. Let's talk a bit about representation, because I know that it's something that's very important to you. And you've said that as a young Black woman, I've learned that one must be assertive and intentional about their voice. I believe in representation, that to be seen and heard is to exist. That's a direct quote from you. So representation is a tricky matter, simply because I think it's viewed as a burden a lot of the time. So what is your take on this? Like, is it a burden? Is it a responsibility? Do you prioritize it? Do you not? How do you do it without compromising your work? Can you speak a bit about that?
So I think for me, the way I've always looked, like people call it diversity, introducing diversity or representation. And I think for me, it's always reflect society as it exists where you are. Give us the context of where you live. Then it should not be a burden. You can't be sitting in South Africa and making a film that the majority of people can't resonate with. You can't have characters or people that convey lives that people can't relate to. So it can't be a burden to literally have a lens on society.
Yeah.
And so that's in terms of storytelling, but in terms of people in behind the scenes, is I, for one, am not going to step onto a project or work on a project where, you know, I see that the people behind the scenes are also not reflective of the society that I live in. You know, it's
Crucial.
important for me that my HODs are people that have the context and the experience, who are going to carry out the job that they need to do. And that, you know, especially in technical areas, that we upskill women, because there is a lack of women in technical areas, and make sure that holistically the world, whether it's in front, you know, television wise, the big screen or the small or the silver screen, or behind the scenes, it looks like the country that I live in.
That's, I think you've touched on something so great, is that it's not just about in front. I think often when we think about representation, we're just like, are there queer characters on the screen? How are they being represented? Are they Black women? Are these minorities? Whatever. But it's also about who is behind and who's telling those stories.
Yeah.
So then have you taken it upon yourself to be a storyteller and represent those marginalized groups?
Definitely, definitely. So like I said, it's reflecting society. You know, when I look around, you know, where I live, I know people of different ethnic groups, of different sexualities. So they should also be reflected in the stories that I write. Why are we writing in a silo? You know, and it's also making sure that those characters are also not like doing stereotypical things. I believe in challenging and undermining stereotypes always, when the opportunity presents itself. And I also you know, believe in allowing different voices to permeate even a story room, creates magic in terms of story, right? Like in our story room, we have men, we have women, you know, we have people of different languages and different ethnic groups. What it just does, it adds magic, because we are all writing from varied experiences, and the story that we're telling will always kind of be nuanced. So it's important that, like I said, front and back on the script, wherever we are, to be telling those kinds of stories. So you
I
gotta be
find that
intentional.
also, you got to be so intentional. And I
You gotta
find that
be.
also, like, writing rooms that have different types of people, and the barriers of entry for writing rooms is quite important. I want to talk to you about how you put together your writing room, because I know that, you know, you need a skill, you need to be able to write. Firstly, we need to know that you can write. We also have limited budgets, we also have limited time, so it's not a lot of time to train as well. So how do you make sure that you have different viewpoints? Because the fact of the matter is, all the trained writers are not going to have that real authenticity that you need, that will make your story different to someone else's.
Yeah, it's always it's always a very, very tricky one when it comes to a writing room, especially in South Africa. It feels like there's like a small pool of like everybody, like, you know, that works together. And they're all spread out on all these different shows, and people don't really last long, especially in like telenovela formats and whatnot. So kind of putting together a writing room for me is like putting a puzzle piece together. You know, it's like making sure that the stories that are going to come out are first obviously going to be reflective of whatever setting or background the story is set in, right? So for example, a first floor, you know, a Soweto, a Polokwane, whichever place, that from a voice perspective wise, there will be somebody who will be able to elevate that voice. And then everything else is about bringing in people with different skill sets. For the current project that I'm on, I'm literally like blessed and honored to have the very best of the best together. You know, I've got our head writer is somebody who, you know, Neil McCarthy, who co-created Rhythm City. You know, got Naz Hewson, I've got, you know, Lwazim Vuzi, I've got, you know, Abby, I've got Untadile,
So
and
a
we're
real
writing room of
melting pot
13
of
people.
different types of
Yeah.
people.
Some are
Yeah.
sitcom writers, some drama, some telenovela, some you know, theater. So when you bring them all together, it's like we all know what story is, but with how they push characters and how they write about characters, it's so interesting on the page because we all bring a different kind of spice, you know, to the story. And then kind of just making sure, I mean, I don't know that people know, but you know, story, the back end of it is such a lengthy process because there's breakdowns and there's, you know, so, and everybody gives feedback from channel, from production, executive producers. So with those people who are the story custodians as well, you're able to put a great story that is, you know, and people question everything along the way, you know. And in a writing room, it's a brainstorming room. We sit and we question, we ask whys, and we motivate. So I think all of that you are able to extract from everyone to ensure that you have a great writing room and you have great individuals that can gel, which is very important because, you know, people hold on to their stories in life.
So, so how do you make sure then that you get more, the most underrepresented, which is young Black females? How do you get more young Black females in story rooms? How do you get more young Black females behind the lens in technical skills? What's your take? What's your solution? I know it's a huge question, but what are you gonna do?
So it is, I mean, it's a big, difficult question. But like I said, whatever project I work on, I always have the opportunity of sitting with, you know, the channel or my executive producers and be like, okay, this is the dream and the vision, and these are the people that I want on the project. And it's also, so in terms of the writing room, in the group of 13 writers that I have, our junior creative producer at Clive Morris Productions was somebody who wrote, you know, one script on grassroots. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, Tabo, you're the one, you know, Tabo, you're going to write more scripts. And he's like, what do you mean? It's like, you're going to write more scripts, you know, because I really believed in him, you know. And that's somebody who would only ever written one script. You know, there's one of our B storyliners. He's, you know, he's written an incredible film before, but he'd never storylined. And I'm like, you know what story is? Format we can teach you. Come to the story room. You know, we are a team. We've got you. People need opportunities, you know. And similarly, even in the rest of like the writing team of, like, I think there's 12, 13.
Sorry, I think you're frozen.
So similarly in the writing team, you know, making sure that, so I was saying, similarly in the writing team, you know, we have young voices as well that come through. And even on our set, you know, so blessed as well. Like, we've got an incredible production team. And I think, I think the average age is somewhere in the 30s. Like, it's a very young team.
That's great.
It's a very young team, but very experienced team at the same time. So
you're going to be biased because you're obviously working on a show that we're going to talk a bit about later. But what has been your favorite writing room, and why?
That's a difficult question.
Nobody said it was going to be easy.
Can I choose two?
Okay, cool.
Okay, can I choose two? Okay, I'd say my favorite writer's room was the medical drama that we have coming out I think in a couple of months on another channel. I don't think I can say much now. That Sunny Head wrote.
Thank you.
And that's part of the story development team. And I think it was all women except for like one guy, right?
Yeah.
and it was created also by another amazing, you know, female producer, Ntokozo. So that was really fun, because you hear all these stories about women can't work together, yada yada yada, but here we were, like an incredible team of, you know, women alongside Sizwe, and you know, we just gelled and we just kind of rooted for each other all the way. And even every draft of script that was rewritten or everybody gave feedback on, no one was ever precious. It was always about the story. So, and that kind of taught me that, you know, you have to have sisters in this game, and we have to have each other's back. So that was really an amazing opportunity for me, and also because it's a procedural, and none of us had ever like worked on a procedural show before. So that
Just
was
to clarify for everyone, procedural is kind of a show that has, every episode has a beginning, middle, and end, and that story ends in that episode, and then we carry on.
Yeah, like a Law and Order, for example, you know, Grey's Anatomy, a case in every episode. So that was really great for me. And I'd say my current show, I mean, I think the first 30 minutes, we're all joking around, talking about each other's day. And then we laugh and we make jokes. But at the end of it, we get our work done. And it's such an incredible, it's such an incredible room, such great energy, and, you know, different storytellers and different skill sets and different types of experience. You've got people who've been writing for over 30 years, and you've got people who've been writing for over 3 years, and somebody who just started, you know, like the last, I'd say the last 70 episodes, B storylining, and B story is the emotional story in an episode.
Story.
It's a support story, you know, and, you know, he's doing a great job. So it's incredible because we all support each other and we all believe in each other, and it's just a beautiful relationship that we all have. I think it's kind of like making friends for life, but you're making friends that understand the thing that you're always talking about, because you have friends outside of film and television who don't get it.
It's really such an interesting world that I wish, I know a lot of writers say this, but I wish we could record writers' rooms and kind of the camaraderie that happens, and how people sort of connect with each other. I remember one of my best experiences in a writer's room was, my best friend in the writer's room was a man who was my father's age, and we were best friends, absolute best friends. And I mean, no other way in life would we have ever come across each other.
Never.
No other way of life would we have ever seen each other, and all of that.
Wait, who's this person you're talking about?
Huh? You don't know him. You don't know him.
Okay.
What's been your biggest challenge in the creative process?
I think, to be honest and transparent, I think there is no creative who doesn't have doubt, and especially when you're a writer too, putting words on a page and them feeling like they've been held hostage sometimes is like a big challenge, because you have to overcome yourself and your doubt, and believe in the characters that you have put out, and believe in their journeys. So that was one of my biggest challenges, kind of like starting from any inception of a show or any creative, is like, am I thinking hard enough? Is this my best work? Like, what am I missing? Is this clear enough? Are people going to get it? And where you take risks, are people going to go on that journey with you? So I think one of the biggest challenges that I can't say I've overcome, but I'm still overcoming, is definitely overcoming doubt in the work, and trusting my words, and kind of trusting that, you know, people want to be entertained. So hopefully they stay with you. You know, it's not a
and you're
cinema.
Providing that. It's one offering. It's one offering for people to be entertained, and hopefully they come along on that journey with you. I'm very excited to kind of speak to you about the fact that you have transcended into the title of showrunner, which is not a very common term in this country. Just to give everyone that's watching kind of a little bit of context, is that there's kind of producers, executive producers who are kind of the money, the admin, the production company owners who get the work commissioned, and then there's head writers who kind of run the story room, break down the story, handle the writers. And now what has crept up from the Hollywood model is this idea and concept of a showrunner who is kind of sits in the middle of all of that as the head of that. So Shonda Rhimes, for example, would be a great example of that, of what is a showrunner and what do they do. So you're kind of really in charge creatively, but you're also really in charge administratively and in terms of production. So, you know, I'm going to call you Shonda. No, I'm kidding. But you have now done production and you've been a writer, and now you are show running your own show, which is going to be on BET coming up soon. So firstly, I want to know, do you want to tell us from your point of view, what are the roles and responsibilities of a showrunner?
So it's basically somebody who is in charge of like the creative processes in a production. So that is casting, that is the story, that is sitting with the HODs of the different departments, the camera team, the wardrobe, the makeup, saying this is the look and feel of this character, this is the look and feel of this setting. And then in post-production, it's about watching all the episodes and having you basically a final approval of all the creative elements. So how the story is brought together once it's edited. So I sit through with my executive producers and be like, okay, cut this, cut that. But they defer to me in terms of what to keep in and what to take out and how to fix things if an episode is too short, if an episode is too long. You know, things like what do the graphics look like on screen, the music, you know, so we have a musical director on our show because of a lot of musical performances, kind of sitting with him and saying, this is kind of the soundscape I was thinking of the entire project, giving them references, coming back, giving them feedback. So every kind of like department creatively and what they execute, you kind of give them the roadmap. So at the beginning, you sit and create what is a look and feel. So when you're pitching the show to a channel, so you sit with, at the time I was with our head director, who was Ubrazuko. So represent what is the look and feel of the show, like the framing, the camera, the lighting, what we're gonna do with lenses, the colors. So everything, every minute detail.
What I love about
the
what
look
you're
and
saying
feel.
is that you kind of like are encompassing, like what you called it, the roadmap. You're encompassing the whole vision of what the show is. That must be quite, that's quite a lot of pressure. How do you handle that? Because at the end of the day, the buck is going to stop with you.
No.
Scratch his head. Scratch his head under pressure.
Scratch his head under pressure. Yeah, so a lot of work. To be honest, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of sleepless nights. Because at every point in time, excuse me, there's a phone call, someone needs approval on a set, on whatever it is, you know, is it a set, is it clothing, you know, post-production. So there's a lot of different voices pulling you all at the same time. So that's one. And then another thing is just like you also are the go-between production and channel for all the creative elements, so that when they don't like an episode, if they like an episode, you know, you have to answer those questions like what went wrong here, what went right here, you know, the casting, all of those things. So it's a lot of pressure. How you handle it, I don't know. Sometimes I just like sit up and like look at a blank wall and hope that everything comes together. And sometimes I'm sitting at my desk and, you know, working through the AMs to get things done. But now I'm just like learning to also be kind to myself and remember to take breaks and reflect and trust that, you know, everyone in the team is putting their best foot forward, and that your best is all that you can always do. So, so yeah, so it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. There's no two ways about it. but it's just breathing, I guess, breathing, believing in what you set out to create, and trusting the incredible team that you work with, and that we
That's
all carry each
vital.
other. We all carry
We've
each
got
other.
we got a really interesting question, two questions that are really interesting, and I want to put them together and pose this to you. Is that how important is the Hollywood model when you're applying, like how your team works, how you function, and how you creatively execute your vision? But secondly, is that with that, because of the kind of content that we're creating, is that how far can you push the boundaries for a South African audience?
Okay, let me start with the second question, because that one is very relevant in Alenako.
Yeah.
So with the current show that with Isono, we are pushing the envelope, like I just hope like no one sends like death threats, or nobody like blasts me, my
This is
phone.
exciting.
It's hectic and it's unique, and we're, you know, trying something new, and trying to tell stories like how our counterparts in the rest of the world tell stories, you know. So that's why it is at 9:30, because that's after Watershed, so you don't have to worry about all, you know, the kissing, the sex, the whatever. So we can go a little bit
Explain to
ham.
those that are watching also, 9:30 means you can get a bit of side boob, a little bit of
Some
ass,
bum,
some bums. You can afford to be a little bit racier because of the time slot that's been given to you. Okay.
So we're pushing the envelope at 9:30. So yeah, like even the way stories are being told, that's why it's more of a daily drama than a telenovela. So it's kind of like suspending disbelief and just like going wild with it. And I really hope South Africans, you know, come through and enjoy and root for us, and the rest of Africa as well, as it'll be going out to the rest of Africa as well. So yeah, so pushing boundaries. I've always wanted to push boundaries. That's really my favorite filmmakers like push boundaries to the T. One very disturbingly so is what's his name, who did Nymphomaniac. Like I'm just
brilliant.
I'm just like, I don't know, but you know, but told the story.
I think it's so great that that's what you want to do, is that you want to push boundaries. I feel like we've been undermining our audiences for so long, that, you know, we can afford to take risks and trust that your audience is going to come with you. They're going to buy into what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. So pushing boundaries, I think that is my problem, has always been like people, you know, the shows that we often get are like during Watershed time, like 6 to 7:30. So you can't afford to do those things.
Yeah, definitely.
So like when I watch shows like The Handmaid's Tale, you know, I think, oh my gosh, brilliant storytelling. But even the way that story, there's no way to tell it without telling those other parts of the story.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we've often been limited with what we can show on television. So having the range and the support from channel to be like, go wild, and like, woo, okay, let's go. What's the first question? I forgot the first question I was supposed to answer.
The first question is that how important is the Hollywood model? In terms of, and how does it influence or indirectly affect how we tell stories in this country?
I don't know how much it does, because we've always been telling stories our way and setting them in our own communities and making sure that they resonate with you know, our people. So I think where we definitely maybe look at the, not maybe just Hollywood, but just kind of like global content, is, you know, budgets were increasing a bit, like, you know, back in the day, because people are like, okay, people really want high production quality. You know, we can't afford to shoot and have footage on beta cams, like, you know. So I think in terms of like technical, in terms of like technical equipment, I think we look at the world to be like, we definitely want to be on par with the world. And in terms of story, I think pushing boundaries and telling stories that are able to travel. So for me, and I think one of my this, how can I put this? So often there's this idea that you need to make a story for Hollywood as if a story that is South African centered with universal themes can't travel the world. You know,
Yeah.
like for
Yeah.
example, in Leva is shot in Eastern Cape. It's a story about initiation and love and queer love in Eastern Cape. But that story can travel because that is a universal, love is a universal
And
theme.
that's what's
You
important
know,
about it. Yeah.
conflict within love and complexities of identity are international universal themes, you know. So
Mm.
I think before we go and harp on about taking more from Hollywood, we should be kind of reflecting and thinking about how we can make our own stories travel better. And we're seeing that now, right, with the wave of new Netflix shows that
Yes,
are
definitely,
from South African
definitely.
commission shows. And like I know a lot of people don't watch Iranian film, but there's this one director, Asghar Farhadi, who's literally won the best foreign language film at the Oscars twice and has been nominated 3 times for all his 3 films. And it's because he takes a story from Iran and makes you feel like you know those people's journeys. He takes simple everyday stories and dramatizes
Yeah.
them, you
So
know.
whose responsibility then is it
It's
to
so,
tell
yeah.
these, to get these really great stories to sort of be told? Do you find that the responsibility lies on the channel? Is the responsibility on the writers and the creators? Is it on the producers? Who is prohibiting these processes and who is allowing them to happen?
I think sometimes broadcasters have like a formula. So if they found
Mm.
a formula that works, then that's what they're sticking to. So I think from a
Mm.
broadcaster perspective, I don't think there's a shortage of filmmakers who come every day to pitch, and you know, storytellers who pitch to channels different stories that relate different lived experiences in South Africa. I don't think there's a shortage of that. And there are stories also that sometimes broadcasters feel that South Africans aren't ready for. And I don't know if how much I can say about this, but you know, there's something that we tried to do, I think like 3, 4 years back, and it was like a story, you know, a love story that centers, you know, 2 people from 2 opposing sides set in South Africa. That is a very,
Yeah.
it centers on a universal theme, but broadcasters are
Yeah.
like, oh, South Africans don't want to hear people that speak different languages from them. If they don't speak South African languages, then it's tickets for them,
Well, this is why your work is so important then,
you
because
know.
you're kind of pushing the boundaries in terms of what is acceptable and what is not. And the more we keep pushing, like
Yeah.
the more the work will get made. We've got a question coming in about sitcoms in South Africa. Do you think that we have a shortage of sitcoms, or do we not have an appetite for sitcoms in this country? I mean, I know there's a lot of sitcoms on the local broadcaster, on the national broadcaster,
Yeah.
as a time slot thing, but it's not necessarily a genre that does exceptionally well, more than
Yeah.
drama in this country. What's your views on that?
I don't know actually. I'm also not a funny writer. Like I want to write a sitcom with my whole being. Like I wish I was Michaela Cole or Issa Rae and I can turn like everyday experiences and make them funny. But you
Mm,
know, that's also not me. So I don't want to speak for others. I don't know what's happening in the sitcom genre, but I definitely love drama. I'm a drama girl. I need to cry with my characters. I need to feel for them. That's
yes,
where I
yes.
am. So I think the other channels with SABC2 definitely has always had the Makotis,
Yes, yes.
the
So I'm
top
saying that
line.
they have
But yeah,
their time slot, but it's not necessarily something that. Okay, cool. What I want to discuss with you is that you now, as showrunner, kind of sit now in the key decision making thing. Who are you looking for? What are you looking for in a writer, in a creative? What is the thing that as a creative will make me stand out to the person next to me to become part of your production?
I think being authentic, that's really the one of the things I look out for. I love people who are themselves, who are not trying to emulate, like I'm trying to write like as much as people like showrunner, like Shonda, like I'm not trying to be Shonda, I'm trying to be
Mm.
Manchester. Yes, she really inspires me a lot. She's the reason why I thought and I've ever believed that a position like that for me can exist, because I saw she, she having that, her having that opportunity. So for me, what draws me to people is their authenticity and how much they believe in themselves and they dream. That always stands out. And that goes similarly with like casting. When I'm watching a casting tape and I have to like, pick which two people are going to channel, for example, for final approval, it's like the actor that comes in and just makes that character their own. I fall in love, and I'm just like, when we wrote this character on the page, oh my God, you embodied it, you saw it, you saw their pain, you saw everything, you just made it your own. And then then sometimes it's like you send one person because you're like, I can't imagine anyone else other than this person, because of the way that they portrayed that role. Everybody got the same brief, but that person
came in and did something that and I think that's you're touching on something so key, is that it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what your background is. Have a really strong point of view, because that's when you can make something your own. You can't do it if you're trying to be something else. So even if a middle-aged white man walks in, he has a distinct point of view. As a Black woman, you have a distinct point of view, and that's what's going to make you stand out. So even if you don't understand the world, even if you've never written for television before, you have a strong point of view.
Yeah, I'm also a firm believer that, like, format and things we can teach people. If somebody has the innate skill, if you're a good storyteller and you know what makes a great story, you don't have to have gotten a master's from USC, or wherever. I mean, which is really good, get the master's, but you don't have to have gone through all the hoops. If it's innately in you and you authentically believe in yourself, you're always going to shine. There's no school to teach creative producing. There isn't. You can't learn a course called creative producing. So it's something that you learn along the way, and it's something that you take on and become that thing. So I think for me, like as you said before, your authenticity and your self-belief and how you just carry yourself, and even reading a script and just seeing the nuances that jump off a page. I'm like, I've seen sample scripts, or even scripts of people that have written for maybe 10-15 years, and somebody who's only been writing for 2 years or a year, and you put them on par. But because this person understands the world, or just understands the voice or the story or that character and how they speak, they won against the other person. I think, so the small things, we can always teach people format. We can teach you how to write on Final Draft. We can, teach you how story structure works. We're still learning it. I don't think there's anybody who's like, I tell stories so great, goodbye. It's a constant learning career. So I think the finer details you can always teach people, but people who are authentic, who are willing to learn, and who just take that whatever opportunity and embrace it and pour everything into it. It's, for me, it moves me.
And it goes across the board, like you were saying, whether you're coming in for an audition, whether you're coming in to write a test script, whether you're coming in to intern, to be a PA, whatever the job is, bring everything that is so authentically yourself, so that you are memorable. I remember it was a big piece of advice I got right at the beginning of my career, is that make yourself indispensable. And I used to sit in meetings and record the notes so well that they started to not be able to have a meeting without me. And so that I was like, I might not know what the hell I'm doing here, but if there is a meeting to be had, they're going to
I'm your girl.
I'm your girl for a meeting, and so make yourself rememberable.
I mean, definitely, I think that's very important. And I think apart from making yourself rememberable, is be insightful, like have knowledge, learn about things, so you are able to contribute in rooms. I've sat in rooms where everybody knows the subject matter more than me, and they're talking, and then I raise my hand and I bring in, some people are just like, and who's that girl, because I sat the night before and Googled if you're doing this and this on stage and the lighting, whatever. how about maybe if we, we don't project it on this and we project it. But meanwhile, I have no idea what I'm talking about now. But
Yeah,
I've
but you're
researched
making it work.
the problem. Yeah, I've researched the problem that everybody was trying to figure out to bring the solution in the room so people can be like, and turn around and be like, okay, cool, let's keep her.
Yes,
And I
I'm so
think,
with you.
yeah, so I think that's the most important thing. Yes, definitely make yourself indispensable, but be insightful, read, keep abreast with changes in your industry, know things. Sometimes be the first person to like even drop the thing. Everybody's like waking up and you're like, oh, y'all didn't hear, whatever thing is not working anymore. We can't do that. We can't,
Yeah.
So just
I want
know,
to speak about your upcoming show, which is very exciting. I know you can't say too much. It's top secret. It's coming out later on this year. It's called Isono. It's on BET. That is the only information we
BET
know right
Africa
now.
channel 129.
There we go. But we've got the showrunner in the house today, so we can get a little bit of insight. Is that what can we expect from what's coming up? I know you said you pushed the boundaries. It's on a 9:30 time slot, so things will be a little bit more racy. What else can we expect?
I think it's a unique story and a unique story world. I don't think you'll be able to, I guess, compare it to anything else. But I'm not a queen of hyping things up. Well, we're currently on a production break because of obviously the pandemic, and lives mean everything to us. So we will be back soon, and we'll communicate all of that. But I think just to say, give it a chance. I think you're gonna love it. It's gonna be very, very it's going to be very unique. It's going to be interesting. There's a lot happening, a lot of drama,
And this is
a lot of
is your
action.
brainchild, right? This is your
Yeah.
brainchild. So you are literally taking this. She's not just a showrunner brought on to kind of run the show, but literally from birth to execution. So from concept right to the end. So that is absolutely amazing. How does that feel?
90% of the time it feels scary as hell. 10% of the time I open my eyes and I'm like, ah, what did you do?
Yeah, but it's also a testament to how great your work has been, that people are willing to invest in your ideas to something of this level and this caliber.
I think, kudos to BET Africa and Monde Twala. I think it's a testament of what the channel is, Black entertainment television. And, as far as I can remember watching, great shows on BET, was that it was always an authentic voice. They, promote Black culture and Black excellence. And being a part of, such a stable and a home that's not only that's international, but that's Pan-African. I could have never in a million years in Polokwane walking the streets of Flora Park in a blazer and stockings in the heat of summer, 39 degree, 34 degrees, eating a lollipop, ice cream, whatever. If somebody said to me in 10 years, I would have like, stop lying. I don't believe you. So, yeah, so 90% of the time I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And then 10% of the time I'm like, oh my gosh, okay.
Well, that is the perfect place to end it. We are so proud of you, this young girl walking in the streets of Flora Park. Thank you so much for joining us on Rewriting the Script.
Thank you so much.
To come from that, everything you've achieved, and to be a showrunner for BET's latest telenovela, which is coming out, and all the information will be dropped. We're proud of you, we're rooting for you, and we support you. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Thank you everyone for your questions. Thank you for tuning in to Rewriting the Script. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Wait, Sunny, I wanted to say thank you so much. Thank you so much. You've been a light, and I love the platform that you guys have created, because we don't have enough of this kind of chats, especially with people from behind the scenes. People never get to know the people that work. So thank you so much. I really, really do appreciate it.